Welcome to Honest Faith Conversations. As always, I am your co-host, Miguel Covarrubias.
And I am Kathy Covarrubias, and today we're going to be talking about The Walking Dead Season 7.
Previously on Honest Faith Conversations podcast. A few weeks ago, well, more like a few months ago, our very first actual episode was about The Walking Dead Season 7, about the midway point. And on that episode, we talked about a few things, actually. We talked about how zombie fiction is all about social commentary, and a couple of shout-outs to different things there. We talked about Morgan and character evolutions. We focused on Father Gabriel at the midway point. He had a much larger arc in the first half of the season there.
But it's a really good episode. I mean, it's probably one of our better episodes. So I would say go ahead and check it out.
It's also, we talked about other character arcs and controversial issues that some of them will be coming up again in this episode. Primarily about how zombie Walking Dead is actually an allegory for the Western Church, kind of, and how faith kind of kills characters in The Walking Dead. So if you're interested, go check out our second episode. It is not structured like the rest of them because, again, we are learning a lot as we are doing this. So, this episode may sound a little differently because I am still having computer issues. And if you would like to donate to us through our Patreon, that's kind of where most of our Patreon money would be going to, is to upgrade our equipment.
New equipment, yeah.
Anyway, let's jump into this one. Obviously, spoiler alert for Season 7. If you have not finished Season 7 yet, we will probably be talking about that final episode because there was a lot of payoff in the final episode.
Yep.
So, spoiler alert for that. Go and watch the episode and listen to our last podcast, and we'll still be here for you.
Yeah. Definitely, I think that the last episode in Season 7 was the best episode in Season 7.
I would say it's pretty close. I would say it kind of dragged a little bit, and then you got payoff in the last, 20 minutes.
Once Sheba came in, yes! I was so happy. If you guys had seen me, when I saw her, jump across the screen, I was like, F yeah! I was so excited. You ask Miguel, I was, wanting to jump up and down. I was so excited.
Well, you did jump off the couch. Yeah, so, anyway, a quick summary of the season thus far. We have basically spent time with Broken Rick, and then midway point, you had Rick kind of coming to terms with the fact that he was going to war again.
Yes, and we learned a lot about Negan. Far before this season, we had heard of Negan, but we never actually interacted with him. This time, we actually saw how cruel and unusual Negan really is. To the extreme.
So, that's a very basic summary of the season. It really was kind of about preparing for the war with the saviors from Alexandria to the Kingdom to Hilltop to the weird trash people that they kind of threw in there. Oh, I didn't put that but we'll talk about that.
The dumpsters or whatever they're called?
Oh, I don't know. They're trash people.
The trash people.
In more ways than one.
Yeah, no kidding. God, frankly, it doesn't surprise me. Their group was already kind of, sketchy to begin with. But, I mean, yeah. They kind of made me mad that they backstabbed Rick. But, again, I'm not surprised.
Well, with a name like what is her name? Jadis?
Yeah.
Well,
biblical connection.
It's not biblical. It's connection to another story. Jadis is a name from Chronicles of Narnia.
That's what I meant.
The White Witch.
Bible.
Yeah, basically the Bible. We don't worship a lion named Aslan. As much as my friends would like to remind me that we do not worship a lion named Aslan. I'm like, yeah, you know that Liam Neeson played God before? They're like, no, he's an allegory for God. He is not God. So, Liam Neeson kind of played God because he was Aslan in Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah, but anyway, the name should have clued us in to where this lady was not going to be
Well, that she was a witch. White Witch of the Trash People. Okay.
The leader of the trash people, at least.
Yeah.
Well, we already knew that, but
Speaking of leadership, that's kind of what this entire season was about. Was kind of the juxtaposition of Negan's leadership and the leadership of the different communities that were around. So that they kind of wrapped it all up, and they talked about leadership in the different ways in the different areas there. We're going to begin with Rick. Rick definitely had you saw the broken Rick's leadership at the beginning of the season, where
well, yeah, I'd be broken too if I just saw like two of. Well, actually, Glenn, not two of, but he was more traumatized over Glenn's death than
Abraham's death.
Yeah.
I mean, Abraham was just the comedic relief almost, you know.
Yeah, well, and he didn't have that connection, you know. I mean, Glenn saved him. Like, if it wasn't for Glenn, he would have died in that tank.
Yeah. Very first episode. I mean, Glenn has been with him since the beginning, and so that was devastating to not only Rick, but also everybody who watched The Walking Dead.
Everyone else. And it wasn't a surprise, like...
It's, you know, it happens in the comic books, but still, like they had that fake out with a dumpster last season, and it was kind of like, you can't kill off Glenn now because, you know, he had that dumpster fake out.
Yeah.
But they still did.
Yeah, but he, as a result, like, his leadership style kind of... Well, he lost his leadership style.
Well,
like, he wasn't leading anymore.
Well, he was in a way. He was deferring to Negan, though. He was very much leading them, saying, we need to do whatever we can to make sure that everybody stays alive. We need to gather all we can so that we keep the Saviors happy. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he didn't want to cross Negan again. And then the whole midway point happened where Negan killed off Spencer and Olivia.
Yeah.
And that set Rick on the warpath. You know, it reminded him of who he was. And that was that whole thing we talked about the last time about him getting his symbol back. He got his massive revolver back from Daryl. And so that was kind of him reconnecting with who he was, with the Rick-tator inside. So,
yes. Yep. He still has the hatchet, but he prefers that gun.
Yeah, and you saw this. You saw him kind of struggling with this during that one episode with Michonne with the magical deer that was poorly CGI'd.
Gosh, you know they have a big budget. Like they couldn't have
spent a huge budget.
They couldn't have put a few more dollars into making that deer like at least, you know, show like light reflection like it's supposed to.
Yeah, that was weird. Unless it like light was reflecting off of something
that was
and
one
hitting the deer.
Shiny deer.
Yeah, it was weird. But you know, you saw him struggle with that idea of leadership in that episode, especially when Michonne was telling him, "Well, who's going to lead everyone afterward?" Mm-hmm. You know, he kind of was struggling with that whole idea of well, okay, that may be me, but I don't want to. I don't want this. Mm-hmm. You know, he saw the destructiveness of him being Rick-tator back in the prison. He saw how kind of, you know, his spiral into madness with Laurie's death, even though everybody kind of cheered that when Laurie died because she was...
Well, I would argue, like...
horribly acted.
You know, because remember when Spencer even brings it up, he's like, everywhere Rick goes...
Yeah.
Like, he brings along disaster and destruction, which is true. Like, everywhere his group has been so far, like, it's been terrible. Yeah. I mean, granted, they haven't necessarily run into the nicest people. However, like, the only thing that they were remotely... well, I don't know. The farm was fine until the zombie horde came along.
Well, the farm was boring. That's why it was fine, was because it was boring. You know, like the zombies started coming in, but, you know, it was like they still could have fended them off. And, you know, yeah, it was. Don't remind me of season 2. That was just bad.
Well, anyway, so, but Spencer was right. I mean, if Rick and his group didn't join Alexandria would have probably been fine. Sure, probably Negan would have eventually showed up to Alexandria. However, you know, those people would probably still be alive.
No, necessarily. I mean, with the wall coming down with that one horde, I don't think they would have survived. I mean, that's something that was going to happen regardless.
Well, and eventually that zombie pit, like the zombies that fell into that mine,
Yeah,
like they were going to come no matter what.
yeah,
too.
that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
Them and the wolves would eventually have gotten there, and there was a whole lot of other things that were going to happen that Rick's team kind of took care of. Rick's Rangers, Ranger Rick.
Oh,
Sorry.
geez.
Then you have the leadership style of King Ezekiel, who leads through this weird. Sorry, like I said, our episode is going to be sounding a little different because we're not in the weird enclosure that I have going on over there with the studio. But we have Ezekiel leading through his fantasy role play that he's
his
doing.
kingdom. He's leading through like old school, like medieval kingdom style.
Good King Ezekiel.
Yeah. Well, and his people respect him. Like he is really out for the good of his people. Like there's a reason why he hasn't let Rick and his goons like into the kingdom. Because he wants to protect his people. He doesn't want his people to know the deal that's on with Negan.
Yeah. And the other way around, he doesn't want Negan to know what's really going on in the kingdom.
Yep.
He kind of gives this weird, false impression to the Saviors as well. Meeting them in that parking lot, and even though Morgan kind of gave away a little bit that Carol had supplies to the Saviors, there was still that instance of where Ezekiel was kind of keeping the true nature of the kingdom from the Saviors and the true nature of the Saviors away from the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, he's the gatekeeper of knowledge, as you will.
he was more kind of little white lies to the kingdom and to the Saviors. So
yeah,
that's kind of his leadership is only giving them the important information. Yeah. Which on one hand, I know you can kind of respect. On another, it's kind of like, well, don't people kind of deserve to know what's going on?
Yeah, especially now because after that season finale, Negan knows that Sheba's around now. Negan knows that Alexandria knows about the kingdom. So, because he didn't know, Negan did not know that the other groups knew about the kingdom yet. He knew that the Hilltop and Alexandria knew about each other.
Yeah.
But he hadn't known about the kingdom knowing the other groups yet.
Yeah, well, because Jesus was around, and so. Mm-hmm. You also have leadership style. Speaking of the kingdom, we have Carol and Morgan there throughout the season, where Ezekiel kind of deferred to Carol's leadership and to Morgan's leadership because, well, Carol saw through the facade of Ezekiel.
Well, he also opened up to her too.
Well, yeah, because like he said, you can't bullshit a bullshitter, because they were both kind of bullshitting people, and he was like, no, this is the real me, and I know that you're not giving me the real you. So what's the real you? And he was, he trusted her. Because he knew that she was putting on this persona to protect herself and to protect others from her, kind of thing. And then you have Morgan, who is kind of doing the same thing a little bit. He's been doing the same thing since the episode where he really tried. He really tried to go along with the pacifist mentality with this entire thing that he was taught by
his friend.
Yeah, his
that
friend.
We're not going to dwell on his name, but yeah, his friend.
So, Morgan's descent back into the madness, kind of, it showed him that, he was kind of putting on a fake persona, and, he was really, in there, in that leadership style, he was the one that was keeping them from actually going to fight, going to war and stuff like that until this point at the end there where, he went into madness after Ben's death.
Well, and I would argue that, like, Carol and Morgan, their style of leadership is more like the behind the scenes leader. Like,
Yeah.
they're not like the one that's like, oh, this is the leader. You know what I mean? They're the people, the council behind the leader that essentially tells the leader what to do.
Yeah. And you have their symbols. It's pretty evident to their character arc on that leadership style and figuring out who they are is their symbols throughout the season. Where Morgan, his staff is his symbol, and his staff got taken away from him. And then when he got it back, and that's when Ben was killed. And so at the end of that episode, he began sharpening it back into a spear, which is more a symbol for him being, kind of more crazed and, clear. Then you have, clear is in reference to him being, crazy before and saying this place is clear and, clearing those things of dead people.
But he's not quite far. He's not that gone, though.
Yeah, he's not that far gone yet. Then Carol's symbol is, her with weapons and that brass-knuckled knife that she has. That she kind of didn't have that near the end of this whole thing, that she had more the symbol of her with a rifle. Is that, her with a rifle is more of that clear direction, is that, going that one way, as it was with her with the killing the walkers, killing them with a one-way sign, was kind of showing her as a more clear, more direct, knowing which direction she needed to go in.
Well, yeah, because I think when she found out how many people had actually died, she feels guilty. Yeah. Like, she left. Like, for all she knows, she could have saved all these people, but here she just decided to leave because she couldn't handle it anymore. And I think this is her, like, trying to
she didn't want to kill anymore. She didn't want to kill people, and that's what she saw herself as. She didn't want to just be a weapon.
Yeah, but because of the decision that she made, she ended up killing her friends. And, like, which was worse.
To her.
Like...
But it wasn't her fault. I mean, they still would have, encountered Negan eventually. And
absolutely. But, I mean... But she still feels guilty because she's not there, because in her mind she possibly could have saved somebody.
Yes. Yeah,
because she is a weapon.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm saying, is that she was struggling with that the entire season. Then you have Hilltop. Moving on to Hilltop, we have Maggie and Gregory is his name?
Yes.
Okay, so you have Gregory, who's kind of like politician, like an everyday run-of-the-mill politician, and you see his kind of weird, dirty political leadership throughout the last couple of seasons, that getting to people to do what he wants and not really giving them much in return.
However, like, it becomes clear that he's terrible at it. Like, he has no say or any sway at all with dealing with the Saviors. He basically does what the Saviors want him to do.
Yeah, and he does well, and you see this through the one Savior, the leader Savior, and I want to say his name is Dennis. It might not be.
Oh, you mean the guy who comes and changes what type of alcohol he likes every time
exactly.
he visits? That guy? Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Is the changing of his alcohol preference. Is because you could see that, well, even he saw that Gregory was trying to appease him.
Yeah.
That everything that Gregory did was trying to appease him so that Gregory could get what he wanted from them. I mean, it's
gotten old.
Yeah, it's gotten old, and I'm pretty sure everybody at Hilltop knew this. I mean, even Jesus told him a few times, is like, you're no leader. Then you have Maggie stepping in at the at the beginning of the season, sort of at the midway point. She begins fully taking on the leadership role at Hilltop.
Well, yeah, because Gregory wants to hide what's going on, like, from his people, where Maggie's like, no, like, we need to, clue people in. We need to give them the decision if they really want to fight or not. They should be able to do so. And the main difference between the two is Gregory is that type of leader that is in his mansion. You never see him go out and mingling with the common folk. Like, he is the leader on high, whereas Maggie's the type of leader who mingles in like with everybody else. So in turn, they respect her more. They can actually see her skill at what she does instead of just like hearing rumors of what she possibly can do, which I find that, I mean, I've had these two different type of like management styles, like either like the people in the high castle, or which also is another the high or the
Man in the High
yeah,
Castle.
yeah, that one's a good one too. Anyway, so you have the Gregories and then you have the Maggies, and honestly, I would prefer to work with the Maggies, and I would prefer to, I mean, I respect the Maggies more because they
Yeah.
actually are out there getting their hands dirty with everybody else.
And Maggie is part of a leadership style that I'm going to bring up a little bit later on in our controversial issues segment. Is, you know, not necessarily leading as a leader, but more leading from example and leading with, is that journeying with rather than shepherding.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Maggie throughout this entire second half of the season. You see her teaching them how to farm while she's out there with them.
Yeah.
She's teaching them how to be, you know, survivors.
Yeah,
and
how to
she's
defend
planning,
themselves.
Yeah, and she's planning for them to be there for the long haul. She talks about that blackberry bush, or the berry bush outside of the walls that she was going to go get because it can produce berries for up to 40 years, you know. And so she's like, no, yeah, we're going to be here for 40 years. So
Yeah. She definitely is planning for the long haul.
Then we have Negan. Oh, that leadership style that you see way too often is that people kind of want to, you know, see him as this weird kind of like sociopathic kind of thing, but he is more or less like, you know, he's wants to be liked. You can see that he wants to be liked, and you know that there is still that part of him that struggles with that. So he is still trying to be that effectual leader by saying this, by making people fear him, but he still wants people to like him. Thing which is, I think, is his weakness, and I think that's, you know, what has been played. He's been played a couple of times by several different people through that leadership style. You have Coral, who played him this season, by, you know, killing people, like jumping out of the truck with the automatic rifle and just going to town, and then Negan doesn't kill him. Negan doesn't do anything. He's just kind of like, you know, that took balls. And, you know, he's like taking him in. He's trying to scare him a little bit, but still trying to be buddy with him. And, you know, it's because you saw that he wanted to be liked.
Well, I disagree. I don't think he wants to be liked. I think he wants to instill enough fear in people to where, like, people know that even when he is acting nice towards you, he can turn at any point in time. You don't know. So I think it's more of a he's playing nice for the most part.
Yeah.
But then he keeps doing these random acts of violence just to keep people underneath his foot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I mean, is that he's still, he knows this about himself. Like, he's self-aware. He knows that he wants to be liked. And that, you know, in that he
wants to be feared. I don't think he wants to be liked. He wants to be feared.
Both. He wants both. He wants to be feared and liked. Is that he wants to be, not in the way that Michael Scott put it in The Office, is that he doesn't want to be like, he doesn't want people to be afraid of how much they like him. Is that he wants people to kind of like how badass he is, in a way. You know, is that
so admire him.
Sort of. Yeah. It's more admire, I would say, but it's kind of that you know, liking. And this, you see this in the way that he treats Sasha at the end of the season, is that, you know, he kind of, you know, his weird complimenting things towards her and stuff like that, is he's still wanting her to admire him, still wanting her to kind of, you know, get on board with him, which Sasha's just not going to do.
No,
you know?
no, of course not.
And you can see that it's kind of his weakness of needing to be admired rather than just, you know, leading with an iron fist kind of thing. And, you know, I'll talk about this here a little bit later on. But I mean, this is something that throughout throughout his entire tenure on the series that you see that weird tension that he lives in between being completely feared and being admired.
Yeah, because there are the people that do admire him, like clearly his cronies who are like at his side constantly, who are kind of mini Negans themselves, like clearly admire him. But then you also have those people who are more on the sidelines, who don't really act like him, but have enough fear of him instilled in themselves to like not question him.
Well, and that's Dwight, and that's why Dwight is starting to move away from that. Why he's going to be helping Alexandria, maybe, because we saw his little figurine at the end there saying that he didn't know.
Which I believe he didn't know.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't there when they were planning all this.
Yeah, I don't think he knew that the trash people were going to turn. And, that's another style of leadership there, too, that brings into the season is the trash people. Is that you see that Jadis kind of runs the trash people as a kind of a cult.
Yeah, like they all have their weird way of talking. They all kind of like dress alike too.
Yeah.
And
riding bikes. That might be cultish behavior.
Well, and the way that they...
Who's riding a bike?
No, the way that we first see them, like when Rick's group goes into the garbage pile or the landfill, and the way that they circle the group. Like, it was in a pattern.
Yeah.
Like, that is not, individuals thinking on their own. That is clearly, like, this weird cult group mentality.
Yeah. So, I mean, this entire season was kind of about leadership and what that kind of looks like and the development of leadership.
And, like, regaining leadership.
Yeah. And you also had a couple of transitions throughout the season. You had a transition of Alexandria. You had Alexandria being this kind of safe place of being,
well, before Negan.
Yeah, more like the, suburbs that you would want, place to be, especially, a safe suburb-like atmosphere. And then you kind of see them transitioning from that into... them going on the warpath of becoming actual, organizers and getting, guns and supplies to the appropriate people and bringing people together so that they can lead this war against the saviors. You see the transition from Hilltop to being that agrarian society that really kind of... soft kind of area there to being more of an actual settlement under Maggie's leadership, where she's training them to be survivors and to how to defend themselves and things like that. You see that transition going on.
Well, they already had some skills though, because they were like the historical reenactment people. So they had people who had the skills and had the tools in order to do the like 1.5 to 2 centuries ago, kind of labor.
Yeah, the skills of making spears and just rudimentary weapons.
Yep.
But not really knowing how to use them.
Yeah.
And then Maggie comes in and really teaches them how to use them. Kind of put those skills into practical use. Rather than just kind of knowing about it. That's that's a big difference in learning, is that you can learn things with your head, but until you actually do them, you don't really have a whole practical use of your knowledge.
Yeah.
Moving knowledge from knowledge to wisdom. You have a transition of the kingdom there, from kingdom being completely separate and, off on their own, to being a more unified community. Whereas, bringing in... connecting with the Hilltop, connecting with Alexandria, and you saw kind of all of those leadership styles coming together at the end there, the final episode, where you saw Ezekiel with his war cries, and then you saw the next shot was with Maggie and leading the Hilltop group in, and then you saw Rick getting up and after him, kind of being defiant to Negan again, which is kind of getting back to where he was at the beginning well, I would say before the end of last season.
Yeah, it was before the infamous ride to try to get to Hilltop.
Yeah. You saw him, and you saw that kind of coming together there at the end. You also saw transition in Sanctuary. You saw that things were starting to fall apart. Whether it be because of Dwight's wife, or Negan's wife now, but Dwight's former wife, leaving the Sanctuary, and her note to Dwight, and telling him about how he lost his soul, and it really showed that the Sanctuary was starting to fall apart then. Some people are still on about Eugene being a part of, tearing that apart, but I don't think so. I think he's just a coward. I think he's just, he's doing what he has to get by, but,
I don't know if after the end of all this, if Eugene survives, I don't know if Rick and the group are going to be able to forgive him.
Yeah, they were willing to blow him up, so...
That is true. Well, they were willing to blow him up, but it was kind of like they would prefer not to have had that, be put in that position. Well, and they were surprised by it too. Like, what the hell? Like, here he is. Like, he was never in a leadership role.
Yeah.
Like, with them, he was always, like, behind everybody. He was always, he always needed to be saved. And yet here he is all of a sudden in, like, a leadership role. But, again, this is part of, like, Negan's strategy to try to get at them. It's like, hey, you clearly didn't see the value of this guy. Personally, I don't think that Negan sees value in him either. I think he more sees him as a pawn.
Well, he does see him as a pawn, and that's, evident in what he said in that final episode, is that, hey, look, I turned your people against you, which, it was kind of trying to play on that whole, turning a phrase there, because that he's standing right next to Sasha, who was turned, to zombie Sasha.
Yeah.
Which is just as badass as regular Sasha.
Well, and I think too, like, hopefully Rick's group, knowing that Sasha decided to kill herself rather than turn herself against them, like, Eugene is just one of those people who, it doesn't, as long as he's being protected and fed, he doesn't care who side he's on.
Yeah.
Where Sasha, like, that is a person who has actual, like, convictions. Like, she, has more stake in this. And the fact that she didn't really turn on Alexandria, she just decided to turn herself.
Yeah. So, yeah, this was all about leadership styles, all about, that kind of transition of these communities here. So, we're going to open up our controversial issues segment, because this is something that I really believe that The Walking Dead kind of in itself is. I talked about in the last episode about how zombie fiction is kind of social commentary, and how Walking Dead is really kind of commentary on religion in itself, in a way. And I think especially in this last season, that's why they bring up so much of the imagery within religion to kind of talk about this, is that, you have Negan's group being called the Saviors. You have his whole compound being called the Sanctuary. You have, kind of this whole idea of religion and how it plays on people is...
and then the kingdom.
Well, yeah, you have in the kingdom as well is kind of those imageries. And you also have, King Ezekiel's quotes on the walls, kind of like scripture.
Yep.
And,
I think, now that I think about it, King Ezekiel uses religious imagery in a good way to, like, rally his people together, to keep everybody's hopes up, to
he
to
uses
spread...
the King James version of, kind of leadership, we'll say. So.
Yeah, but as a result, obviously there's people in his group that think that, he's a little bonkers, but, they still respect him. They still admire what he's doing. Whereas Negan also uses the, like, religion, like, terms, like, for sanctuary and that kind of stuff for a bad thing. Like, he evokes these, like, good imagery. Like, when you hear of sanctuary, you think, oh, this is the place where I'm going to be safe. Where it's the exact opposite. Like,
yeah.
And, like, the saviors, like, they're not saving anybody. Like, what are you talking about, the saviors?
Well, and this is why I put this in the controversial issues segment, is because I see so many churches being run this way. They're being run through fear, that they're controlling their people rather than, being a part of a community. Whereas, rather than being a Maggie leadership of, style within a church community, mm-hmm. you have way too many Negans being in charge of church communities.
Too many Gregorys who are on,
Yeah, you have politicians, you have people who lead through fear but still want to be admired and want to be liked. And, mm-hmm. You have these politicians who are just, weaselly politicians. And you have so many different, styles of leadership within the church that, it's so askew. And the weird thing is that even as I'm saying this, I'm sure coming to your mind, you've been to a religious community that is like this. That, you've run into a religious community that's being run through fear, or being run by a politician, or being run by somebody somebody that you realize is fake.
Yeah.
Is that there's just something about them that seems off to you.
Like, yeah, like I've been to a few churches where I just the leadership, I just get this sense of like, ugh,
yeah.
Like there's something I don't quite believe about you. Like, either you're just putting on a show for everybody up there, or I don't know, maybe it's just because, what happened a few years back with the large churches, with all of those like sex scandals, and it really, really rocked those churches, to the core. Like, people felt really, really betrayed, and those same characteristics and same leadership styles are still really, really rampant, and especially the larger churches. And it's just, anytime I see that leadership, I'm just reminded of those stories, and I'm just like, there's something else. You have some secrets. You are embezzling. Like, I don't know what's going on, but you're not who you want everybody to think you are.
We also, this is very much kind of how I view it, is that so many times I feel like people believe that you got to lead like you would lead if you were living in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Is that you need to lead these people as like your community is the only community. And that you don't have to do that. And that's why I loved Maggie's leadership throughout this entire thing, is because Maggie led through example, that she was there working with the people, that she was getting her hands dirty, and that she was just being herself, and that people followed her naturally rather than, forcing them to follow her.
Oh, yeah, I don't think she meant to. When she first got there, I mean, the whole point of her being there was to be around the doctor because she was having some issues.
Yeah.
And then also to hide her from Negan because he thought that she was dead until now. But
thanks to Father Gabriel.
Yeah. So I think that kind of leadership I admired, the ones where she never sought leadership.
Yeah.
She wasn't like, here I am, no, I'm going to be the leader of this group. Like, she just, it just kind of happened naturally. Like, she called out Gregory on his BS.
Yeah.
And, she just kind of did her thing. She was just Maggie.
Yeah. So, we're running out of time here. So we're going to close this on up here. But, if you enjoyed this season of Walking Dead and you have some more points that you would like to add, make sure that you let us know about that. You can email us at honestfaithconvos@gmail.com. You can tweet at me both of us actually, because I'll show her. But at Real Honest Faith on Twitter. Kathy also has a Twitter account, which Tazon Day apparently started following her this week.
Yeah,
so,
he's kind of a minor celebrity. It's all right.
Yeah, he sings about chocolate rain. So, and apparently he's a really nice guy. So that's what a lot of YouTubers say. So I don't know him personally.
Nobody seems nice.
Yeah, but yeah. So tweet at us. Let us know. Also on our main Spreaker page is our Google Voice phone number. So give us a call and leave us a voicemail, and we might actually use it in a future episode. If we get enough voicemails, eventually we'll be like user feedback, and we'll have conversation about that.
Yeah.
Also, you can find our website at thehonestfaith.com. It has my blog on there, as well as other creative projects that we are doing. I've kind of fallen behind on the spiritual readings only because, my computer's down, and also I'm running out of time now. It's kind of hard to keep up with all of the creative projects when I'm actually working. And so you can also find us on Facebook. So that's another way for you to get at us. So Real Honest Faith on Facebook as well. And that one is constantly telling you when we've got new stuff coming out. So that one is actually the place to follow us on. Like the page, share the page, let people know about us. Also, check out our Patreon and go to support us there if you would like.
So we can get new equipment.
So
this will sound better.
Yeah, and that's what I'm going to do right after the episode here, is to research how much it's going to cost me to buy a new case and power supply and motherboard so that I can redo my computer. So anyway, with all of that being said, we thank you so much for listening. We love that you guys listen. We don't do this for financial reasons. We do it because we enjoy doing it. So just wanted to say thank you. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, we invite you to come and join the conversation. It's not a corporate phrase, Stephen Colbert.
What?
Stephen Colbert made fun of that phrase, join the conversation, this week.
Oh.
He said it was corporate.
Boo.
Anyway, we invite you to come and join the conversation.
Bye.